Welcome to the Fundraising Elevator, where we're all headed up. This podcast is a production of Elevate, an online learning platform for fundraising event professionals. We're coming to you today from the studios of the AV department. Please welcome our hosts, Kristen Steele and Samantha Swain.
Hello, and welcome to the Fundraising Elevator. Today, we have a special guest we're so excited to have on the show, and she's going to share a little bit of wisdom from a case study of her fundraising event, which is coming up just around the corner. So we're going to invite you all to join us and attend, but also to talk about how the work of their mission in radical hospitality is I think the antidote to the world right now. So we're excited to jump into a conversation today. But before we do, I want to share with everyone that today is also the first day of the Elevate conference, and it is not too late for you to join in. So if you missed out on the Elevate conference and you want to join in, you can join in by signing up to register as a virtual attendee, in which you'll get all of the recordings. You can also join in online with us right now. And if you're listening to this a couple of weeks in the future, you can also go and sign up to be a virtual attendee and get all the recordings. So if you are looking for fundraising school for your fundraising event, it is not too late to join us at Elevate. We talk a little bit about where fundraising events are headed. We had a past episode that we dove into 2025 fundraising events, and what we're finding is hybrid is where things are headed. Yep. A lot of organizations utilize hybrid events right out of the pandemic, and some organizations kind of moved away from hybrid to go back to
what we've always done. But hybrid is a way to stabilize right now and is a way to make sure that we're providing a bigger reach in a community. So one of our favorite hybrid fundraising events that we do is an event called EQUIVOX, Equal Voice. It is coming up this weekend. So we wanted to invite Executive Director Kimberly Wilson to share with us a little bit about EQUIVOX as a case study, teach you a little bit about what's working for them, and invite you to attend, because as a viewer, you can log in and you can see what the experience is like for a virtual attendee. So today we're going to talk about radical hospitality. We're going to talk about hybrid events, and we're so glad to have you, Kimberly. Welcome to the show.
Thank you so much, Sam. It's so good to be here.
Well, let's officially introduce Kimberly to our guests.
Love it. There's nothing better than reading someone's bio while they're sitting right here watching you read their bio. But here we go. Kimberly Wilson is the Executive Director of Hedgebrook, where women are authoring change. We have worked with Kimberly helping produce their annual fundraising event for the past 4 years. We started working together on a virtual event during the pandemic and quickly learned that the broadcast element had a lot of opportunity for Hedgebrook. So we helped build a hybrid model with them that we see as truly the future of fundraising events. Kimberly is an author, a journalist, and an incredible leader in the arts community. And it is such an honor to work with you, Kimberly. Welcome to the show.
Thank you, Kristen. Thank you for having me.
Let's start big picture.
Okay.
For the hopefully only 2 people out there who do not know what Hedgebrook is. What is Hedgebrook?
Hedgebrook is a dream come true.
Oh.
Yes.
Hedgebrook is a writing residency for women-identified writers. And whether they're, long established writers or writers who are really finding their voices, Hedgebrook was created with the idea that it would give women writers the time and the space, the time and the space that they needed to be able to create and finish and start the works that really matter. And in addition, to give them the community and pour on them something that we call radical hospitality. That is basically the idea of giving caregivers the kind of care that they give people they love, so that they're able to let go of all the vestiges of things that would hold them back from creating and writing the songs, poems, stories, screenplays, works of theater, nonfiction work, anything that they're writing. And it's a formula that really has worked for, since 1988.
Yeah.
Good grief.
Time passes.
Yeah. We're 37 this year.
Amazing.
Well, I think when you say it's a dream come true, it's a really good description, because I have found that as the world is hurting, I frequently look to, how do we heal? How do we take care of each other? And then I spend a day with you all and I'm like, the answers are here. Yeah. Well, you produce an annual event every year as a way to bring donors together around your mission, not just your attendees that join you on the land for the residencies, but to bring your donors together. And it's coming up in just a few days. So we wanted to share a little bit about it. So March 16th is EQUIVOX, an event that celebrates equal voice. And it also is in alignment with the spring equinox. It's also really a time to think about celebrating growth and to bring and invite people to participating in the work of Hedgebrook. So the hybrid format is something that we've worked on for a couple of years with you. And I want to share with the audience a little bit about what the hybrid format is before we dive into this year's event. So we have a brunch event on Sunday. Guests are coming to the event location in the Seattle area. We'll have about 300 people in the room. And then we broadcast this event out. And here's the thing that's interesting to me about your broadcast is that you have an alumni base that for 37 years, you have been bringing people to the land and giving them space to write. And that alumni base is huge and has grown.
Global.
And it's is a global
audience. Yeah.
And when we started to see that the broadcast allowed all of your alumni to participate, it really expanded what was possible for the event. During the event, it's a short 1-hour program where we center storytelling, we center your writers, and we give everyone an opportunity to give. So we work with Kelly Russell, Artists and Auctions, who takes that stage.
Love her.
And raises those paddles in the room, but then also turns to the giving audience at home, looks right to the camera, and thanks them for their giving, in which we have a text-to-give platform that folks at home are giving from. So it allows this really cohesive environment where I think the guests at home feel included, the guests in the room feel included, they know of each other, they're aware of each other's presence, and collectively we're able to really grow the impact of what you're able to raise. Last year, you hit $500,000. That was a huge jump from the year before.
For those not watching this on YouTube, there was a dance that just happened in the studio.
Kimberly did a little happy dance for that $500,000.
Let's dance it out.
And I think that it's really a model that for a lot of organizations who don't have donors that are able to be in that room, it could be activating around or leveraging. So for those who want to tune in, it's free to tune in, and you can do so by going to avcast.me/EQUIVOX. We'll have a link in the show notes. Tell us about this year. What are you most excited about, and who are some of your featured guests that you're going to have at EQUIVOX?
I'm thrilled about EQUIVOX every year, but this year is going to be remarkable. We have as our keynote the author, the multi-hyphenate rock star award-winning
all the awards
writer, Jacqueline Woodson. I'm thrilled that she's a Hedgebrook alum, of course. I'm thrilled that she's going to be coming out to join us and be in discussion. And we'll also have Dr. Seema Yasmin, who will be there as well, another alum that I'm excited to see again.
And she's a YA author,
and she's a YA author, as is Jacqueline. Jacqueline writes everything.
All the things.
All the things. And I'm really excited to see what, the magic that gets to happen in the room, as it has in the last 4 years together. And I know we're a unique organization. We're a residency that's a place-based organization, free to the writer, but because we've had so many years in existence and we had so many writers, we have writers all over the world.
Yeah.
And historically, before COVID, there's always the things that we learned through COVID. Before COVID, EQUIVOX was really a local event with a mostly local board and our mostly local supporters who showed up in the room. And it was probably what you would expect of a fundraising event to look like.
Yeah.
A lot of fun. It's a brunch, so it's a little bit different than a gala, but still who you would expect to be in the room.
Yeah.
What it is today is Hedgebrook is an incredibly diverse organization with a very diverse group of writers who have attended over the years. The room reflects that.
Yeah.
But the online community reflects the people who might not have had, $100 or $200 for a ticket, even if they had been in town.
Or an airline ticket.
Or an airline ticket. Or it may be that they're caregiving and they're not leaving home. But what they have is a deep love for Hedgebrook. And they have a real sense of camaraderie to be able to see other writers that they know and admire, both online in the chats, which are just a joy to be able to experience. And they're as excited as the people in the room. And the people in the room were really, really excited to be there. So it's, I realize that we're a unique organization, that everything falls into place to be able to make a hybrid work so well. But I can't imagine us not having a hybrid event.
Right.
Yeah.
You'll remember a couple years ago, there was in the chat a writer who was in Kenya, in Nairobi, in traffic, listening and joining in, texting online into the chat. And while we were sitting in South Seattle, having an event, she was reconnecting with the people who she feels are her community in the world.
Yeah.
That's something that you just can't beat.
Well, and I think, you say that you think you were sort of uniquely positioned to capitalize on hybrid, which I believe is true. Yeah. And also, what I would say to folks out there who are like, we don't have an alum base like that. We don't, whatever.
Sure.
You were also a small local organization throwing a small local event.
Yes.
And you had to dare to dream at some point that there was an audience out there for you for this mission, right? And I think that is that's the bigger piece and dream space that we're asking people to lean into with hybrid. And part of that is embedded in the storytelling in, at, and around the event. Yeah. Sure. And I think what's interesting is while you are a place-based organization, you, like other organizations, can't necessarily have donors be front and center to you executing your mission, right? So for you, it's women identified authors in residency on the land. Yeah. Get out, everyone else. This is the point, right? We want to shut the world out so that they can go in. And I think we are speaking to a lot of organizations here on the podcast and in general where donors can't be front and center in their mission because of confidentiality, because of access, because of all of those pieces. And so storytelling in and around the event becomes a way to bring people in. And so, the examples were given today, yes, they are specific to Hedgebrook and place-based, but I want to sort of broaden people's idea of what that can look like in their own mission to hitch sort of themselves to that star. And so because you're place-based, what's interesting is that the percent of donors, major donors, sponsors, whoever, who have actually put foot on the grounds at the farm is very, very small.
Right.
And yet, because, I'll own the experience of it, because I've had the exceptional privilege to do that, I understand that in a different way. So part of the storytelling became, how do we take people in?
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
And there's a bazillion reasons why people have barriers, right? And physical location, but also ability. Can they go walk the grounds and do that? And so video storytelling became this really magical way to take people in that room in South Seattle. So Hedgebrook is on Whidbey, right? Which is not in Seattle.
Right.
Which is its own sort of journey when you're in Seattle to
Planes,
get to Whidbey.
Trains, and automobiles.
Right.
Ferries.
So you have the physical part of this event in a space where people come because having it on the land doesn't make sense because it's this additional barrier, right? So you also, for people in that room who have a sense of Whidbey and the place, it also provides them the opportunity to remember, the trees.
Right.
Oh, the space.
Right.
Oh, the quiet.
And
cookies. So, or the cookies. There's a never-ending cookie jar for writers at Hedgebrook. Exactly. And so there's this magic where we can utilize that video storytelling and those elements. You bring in centerpieces of things from the land to ground people in the nature and the experience. You have a backdrop that is a photo of one of the cottages that is the backdrop to the stage. And so storytelling is core to your mission. And so embedding storytelling in the event pulls that through, but it also does this other thing where you're creating an immersive experience just by sort of surrounding people with some of those touchstone pieces. And for donors, they go, oh, I get that. And for alum who are in the room, nostalgia sets in and they go, oh, I was in that cottage.
That.
I remember that. Oh, I walked on that path, all of those things. So you have these lovely elements coming together. And every year you share stories of writers, their process, the impact that Hedgebrook had on them. And this year we're bringing the idea of the reader in.
Mm-hmm. Yay.
Tell us more about your audience and why the choice to center the reader in storytelling this year you think is going to be so impactful.
It's so important. So Hedgebrook is for writers, right? And a writer's process may be they've been working on something for years and trying to get into Hedgebrook. They apply and our alum adjudicate the process and maybe they select them to come. And they spend a week to 4 weeks on the land being fed, being cared for, and having really the freedom that they need to connect with each other and to just write and to sleep and walk the land and the beach. And so that's their experience. The reader comes in much later, right? When this work is published or this song is produced or this film is completed, and we get to participate down the line. But the whole purpose of a place like Hedgebrook is to give the writers what they need so that their works can make it out to their audience.
Right.
And so I think it's really important if you believe that the works of writers help to shape the zeitgeist and give us succor when we need it, give us relief when things are really tough, give us joy. It's really important that they have this space so that the readers for years then afterward can come back to their works, can share their works, can mark them up as I sometimes do with my books, and just really get to experience that for the long haul.
Yeah.
So it's like an investment that pays off for the reader.
Yeah.
And I think to what you said a moment ago, I want to come back and say when we first started working together, the hybrid was sort of an investment as well.
Yeah. Yeah.
It was, we were still in the middle of COVID. And we were having an event that a lot of our donors were not in attendance at.
Yep.
Yeah.
And we made a conscious decision to not charge for the online, to make that an accessible space.
Yep.
And during COVID, a lot of radical ideas were able to get life, and then we rolled back to what we knew. And what I'm grateful for is that we didn't do that. We kept that space so that anybody can join. And we're talking about people around the world, but it's local too. So it really is whoever cannot be in the room that day can be in the room that day with all of us. And most of our supporters are readers.
Yeah.
More than writers.
Yeah.
So I'm thrilled that we're going to have two amazing writers, but particularly in Jacqueline Woodson, a writer whose works have repeatedly been banned and censored for the radical reality that she is a Black queer writer telling her story.
That she exists.
Radical world.
It's such a radical world. And I think it's important, to have a voice that speaks in the face of that gaping, gnawing, void, that is out there, to sort of say, like, you keep writing.
Yeah.
And you keep telling stories, and people keep reading and finding what they need to endure.
Yeah.
And I think that's and to resist. And I think that's really important.
I want to fangirl for a second, real quick.
Yeah.
So I am not the consumer that is the writer. I am the consumer that is the reader. Yeah. And when we first started working with you, still to this day, I cannot believe in the past 4 years how many things I have picked up to read, to watch, to listen to, especially music, that has brought me a sense of hope or joy where I've gone to look a little bit more into this writer and I found out that Hedgebrook touched this work.
100%.
It's unbelievable.
Yeah.
I mean, if it was female-led and conceived and created, you dig one page in, you look at the back of the book, and somewhere in there, someone is thanking Hedgebrook for the impact that they had. And
we have a whole library of that.
It is unbelievable. So as a fangirl, right? Like I sit on the side of fangirl. I'm invested in the success of your writers, that in the room, you get to meet these women, you get to hear their experiences, you get to get inside their personal discovery. But online, you get the same thing, because not only are you getting to watch the storytelling happening from the stage, you also are interacting in a chat with names that pop up that I'm like, did I read that correctly? I mean, it's unbelievable how many, it's a great gathering space that's been curated where you have all of these women in the literary world, all of these new writers, and all of these readers gathering together to support at this event. So from the fangirl side, I encourage those who are readers, consumers of music, have been inspired by a movie written by a woman, dive in and look to see if Hedgebrook was on there, and then tune in to be a part of this community, because it's for everyone.
It is. And it is hard. It is truly hard to hold it together sometimes, because you're like, I am in the midst of greatness.
You are. What's interesting, and I want to underscore here, is the reciprocity. And we're talking about sort of naming the readers in the storytelling this year as being sort of continuation of the circle of creation, right? And what's interesting there is that by bringing the readers in, parentheses donors, they're seen, right? But also, they are seen by Hedgebrook, but they are seen by your authors too. And so there is this lovely synergy that happens that completes that full circle. And what I want to underscore there is that is the circle regardless of people's mission. So for folks out there listening who are, I work in housing, or I work in education or whatever those pieces are, it's that everyone gets, it's a circle. It's not two lines where we're lobbing something back and forth. It's that literally we are standing in a circle, looking at one another, taking each other's hand, and providing what is essentially that mutual aid and community. And there is something really lovely about the layers of interplay in a hybrid event that allow people to be seen and to interact that way. And so I just want to make sure that folks don't tune out because this isn't their mission. All of these pieces are applicable in really concrete ways, regardless of the work that you're doing.
Absolutely. And I guess I have a little ED FOMO sometimes at organizations that have, a clear, urgent need for what they do. Because I think, gosh, that must make it easier to ask and to receive resources, because what you do is so vitally important to the world. And it's putting food on people's plates or shelter over their heads. And that's not Hedgebrook. But I do think that the work that the writers create, and the fact that they're able to do so in a way that makes us smarter, changes us, gives us hope, gives us something to think about and questions to mull, that does make people's lives rich.
You bet.
Yeah.
And so I'll take that. Yeah. I'll take that too.
Please do.
But it applies regardless of what it is that you're doing.
Well, there's a little piece of your mission that I want to make sure that we touch on when we come back, and that is radical hospitality. Yes. Because I think that that's another component that's unique to you, but could apply to everyone. Absolutely. So we're going to take a short promotional break, and we'll be back to talk about radical hospitality.
Can't wait.
Ready to take your fundraising to the next level? Need to get unstuck in your event planning? Now's your chance to connect directly with the experts behind the Fundraising Elevator. Book a one-on-one consulting session with Sam for strategic planning and fundraising strategy, with Kristen for your program and storytelling, or Mary for your registration and data tools. They're here to provide you personalized answers to all your event questions. Don't wait. Raise more at your next fundraising event. Book your session today at elevatenonprofit.com. You can also find the link in the show notes.
All right, welcome back to the Fundraising Elevator. We're here with Kimberly Wilson of Hedgebrook, talking about the upcoming EQUIVOX event happening this Sunday, inviting everyone to tune in. But when we left at the break, we talked about the fact that you have this little piece of your mission that I think is kind of this really beautiful antidote in the world right now. So I want to dive into it. Let's talk about radical hospitality. We sit here in a time where there's a lot of pain, a lot of conflict in the news, a lot of disasters happening. And, I know that you have some like-minded folks on your team that think about the fact that we're going through this radical time of change, right? And astrology tells us it's this evolution. And on the other side, there's something magic that's coming and there's something really good that's going to come. But you sit there and hold this little magic medicine, and that is embedded in your mission. It's embedded in everything you do. And that is radical hospitality. Can you talk about that and what that is for you all?
Absolutely. So radical hospitality is, you know it. Everyone knows what it is, right? It's that kind of care that somebody who gives to you or that you give to others that really centers them and lets them let go. Mm-hmm. The sad part of radical hospitality is that often caregivers are primarily women-identified folks.
Yeah.
And are more often the giver of radical hospitality than the receivers of it.
Yeah.
So I like to say that occasionally when we'll have visitors on the land, and it'll be men and women identified folks on the land, the men take it all in. The beauty, the beautifully prepared meals from the garden, the way everything feels just bespoke and just for them. And they're like, yeah, this is great. And then I'll turn to the women who are there, and they may not be writers. They may not have anything to do with our mission. And they're crying or there are tears in their eyes because this does not exist for them as women-identified people.
Yeah.
And so I think that there is such an enormous value in it. And I also think, to your point earlier, that it really, in the face of the challenges that we're all experiencing, knowing that there is a space that will take women and say to them, you are enough.
Yeah.
And we've got you. And we're not asking anything of you other than that at 5:30 you come down and have a drink and join us for dinner. Join your fellow writers for dinner.
Yeah.
That's it. How you spend your day, it's on you. If what you do is you come and you sleep for that first 4 days of your stay, that's what you needed to do. Amen. So, and that's not something that we're often accorded.
Yeah.
So it is truly radical, and it does feel like an antidote. It does feel like it is it sort of feels defiant.
Yeah, it does.
In the face of
it's
this world.
It's very anti-capitalistic too, right? Like this sort of world that we live in that says produce, produce, produce. And you say, no, you don't have to write a word while you're here. There's no production goals. There's no publishing goals. There's no page count goals. The goal is that you get to go in and do the work that's so important so that your voice then has space. And it's such a radical concept, and yet it's so beautifully executed. You have an entire hospitality team.
Yeah.
I mean, and they work their tails off.
Absolutely.
With like incredible meals, and they take care of everything you could possibly imagine. And you have 5-6 writers on the land.
6.
And one of them has a nut allergy, and one of them's vegan, one of them's gluten-free. And they make a curated meal for every single meal for every writer that's there. I mean, picked that day from the farm.
Can I tell you, I was just in the kitchen a couple of days ago, and in one of the endless cookie jars was a yellow sugared cookie that had a label on it. It was like vegan, gluten-free, whatever. And I sampled one, and it was, neither vegan nor must I eat gluten-free. And it took all of my restraint to just eat one of these cookies because these were not made for me. But I mean, it's the care and the love that goes into it. And it is love. I mean, that sounds cheesy and it sounds like I'm making that up, but it is love. Yeah. And it is, and to your point about being, this is an anti-capitalist kind of an idea. The funny thing is, when you pour this on women writers,
it produces more.
Mm-hmm. So the writers, it's now just de rigueur to have somebody say to me, I wrote more in my stay here than I've ever written in my life as a writer. Or I finished something and then got started on something else, or I revived something that I thought was dead, and now I'm taking it to the end. Like, that happens because of that care.
Yeah. Well, and I've had the fortune of interviewing all of your caretakers.
Yeah.
And
they're amazing.
The thing that I was most struck by is that participation from them in radical hospitality is their personal mission.
Yeah.
They are doing the work that they were called to do so that other people can do the work that they were. It's this amazing thing. And I think
back to your circle analogy, it is very full circle.
I'm stuck on circles, but I think they're important. I think radical hospitality can be the answer to all of those questions about how to take an event that is good and make it great, because the benefit of radical hospitality is being seen and being heard and having space made for you and what those pieces are. And part of what takes an event from good to great is that donors feel seen. Yeah. How does radical hospitality creep into your fundraising? Because I know it does.
It does. I mean, I would start with gratitude.
Yeah.
I think the gratitude is just real and authentic and expressed all the time, because what we do could not happen without the gratitude, without the generosity of the individuals who give to Hedgebrook, and the gratitude sort of circle that creates. And most of our donors, most of our fundraising is individual, with individuals. And whether they're making a monthly Cedar Deep gift, which was created by an alum, this program, a monthly giving program that an alum said, there's got to be a way for us to be able to give back to this incredible organization, and the radical reciprocity, right? Wanting to return the favor, and both to the organization, but also to the next writer who gets to come after it. So there's really a sense of wanting to create continuity. And I think both our alum and our donors feel that really strongly. And so at EQUIVOX, at the tables this year, 9 of the seats are for the table host and their guests, and one of the seats that they're purchasing covers a Hedgebrook writer to sit amongst them or more. And with 30 tables, that's 30 writers that are in the room at the tables for the writers and more. And that means that they're actually having conversations and getting to meet writers whose books they have on their shelves and who they care about, and are invested in. And there's definitely something cyclical with this.
I want to tap into some logistics that pop up for you in your fundraising event where radical hospitality shows up, specifically in your event, because you design your event to be a reflection of your mission. All of the choices we make about the event reflect that. So you already mentioned the fact that flowers and greenery from the land come into the event as our centerpieces and our stage decor. The backdrop of the stage is a cutout of the cottage that folks stay in when they're there, which are these
full-size, basically.
Full-size, beautiful cottage. Then in addition to that, We have a writer at every table.
Yep.
We sell the writer's books in a bookstore at the event, so folks can access
Elliott Bay.
them. Thank you, Elliott Bay Books. Then in addition to that, we have things like a band book raffle or a collection of books that you can buy in a raffle.
Absolutely.
You also have this historic cookie jar that's an endless cookie jar. So our one auction package is the opportunity for a table host to be able to buy a platter of cookies for their table, their guests. You also have the radical hospitality of staff and board that take on the role of hosting. They greet every donor that comes in. They take on all the roles of the volunteer roles so that they can say hello and welcome everyone. They leave little gifts on the table that include gifts from the land. Last year, there were little bundles of lavender because it was in season. So there's a lot of intentionality that shows up in the event, but it shows up in how you do your work, how you cultivate your donors, how you produce your event. So if this is an idea that is striking someone on the front of, oh my gosh, we need to incorporate radical hospitality into our work, where do people start?
Call us.
Well, how do you, what does that even look like to start to think about?
I think it's, no matter what your mission is, I think it's centering the people whose needs you're trying to meet and saying what would make them feel as able to receive it as possible. I mean, I think the thing that's challenging about radical hospitality is it's not natural. It is not a natural state. We're not acculturated to, as women-identified folks, receive it gracefully, if at all. And it takes effort. I can't tell you the number of times we're sitting at dinner and I'll join the writers and the meal, the chef is in the room and they do this amazing, self-depreciating little dance where they will be like, oh, and tonight's dinner, it's just
a little thing.
The most amazing thing you've ever eaten.
No, they would never say that. They were like, oh, there were just some courgettes that were in the garden that were about to go. And so I made a salad and there's no nuts because of the nut allergy. And then I did this and then, the persimmons, well, I made them into cookies. And you're literally like your mind is blown. Right?
Yes.
So, and I've completely lost the thought because I'm talking about the food. But it doesn't exist that we're accustomed to that. And after that meal, the writers will, they'll have seconds, and they'll immediately get up and reach to start clearing the
dishes.
Table. And I get it. It's what you have to do at home after a meal. And yes, when you're in a restaurant, somebody does it for you. But this is like it's like you're at home and your parent is taking care of you, right?
Yeah.
And you get to be the kid again. You're not actually clearing the table. Well, if you were me as a kid, you were not clearing the table. You were sitting there while somebody else cleared the table. And you get to have that. And you get to just sit and enjoy. And, somebody will top up your coffee. And, here's the plate of cookies that were over there and put them on the table so you can really enjoy. And meanwhile, the chef is cleaning the kitchen and preparing to head out for the night, and the conversation gets to go on and they get to be there enjoying it rather than them being in the position where they're the one doing the labor and not getting to participate.
I feel like you have a staff hiring filter that you use, which is
Kathy.
How good are you? Yes. How good are you at anticipating other people's needs? Which Kathy is
very good at.
Kathy leads your operations team.
Absolutely.
And the thing that I am always
Kathy
impressed, the thing I'm always impressed by her is that she anticipates my needs at every turn. I'm pulling up and she's out the door showing me where to park. As soon as we get out of the car, she's showing me where to put my stuff. As soon as we're walking down into the meeting, she's welcoming me, handing me a glass of water, showing me where the restroom is, asking me how my drive was, and making sure I have the agenda. Like, her ability to be a caretaker and host blends into her hiring practices. And all of your team leads with that, which I think is probably the baby step for our nonprofits out there, is thinking about how do you anticipate the needs of both the people you care for. Probably your program staff is already doing this, but how do you turn that into supporting each other and supporting your donors?
It becomes your, it's not the mission itself, but the mission is so wrapped into it that it's impossible to disentangle. It's just who we are and what we value.
Yeah. To me, the way I've sort of noodled it out in my brain is, to me, radical hospitality is the difference between just removing barriers for me and actually making me feel like the space was made for me. That's an interesting thing to think about when we start to think about donors and our organization. Yes, there are all these things we should be doing behind the scenes to eliminate barriers to their participation in things. But in fact, to go from good to great, it needs to feel like my personal mission finally has found its home and expression in this organization.
I think what you just said really strikes me. It's often that's the effort that is made for donors only. Right?
Yeah.
Where we're radically hospitable because people are going to give resources to an organization.
You bet.
We turn it on its head.
Yep.
We are radically hospitable to the people who benefit from Hedgebrook. And that in turn spills out onto everybody, including the donor. Yeah.
I love that so much.
You did that. You said that.
Your organization's fundraising has really transformed in the past few years. What are you doing?
Another happy dance is happening.
What are you doing differently to engage donors, and how are you continuing to keep them involved in your work despite the crazy times?
Listening to Sam Swain. That is my strategy.
You flatter me, friend. You flatter me.
No, I mean, really, I've learned so much, and we as an entire team have learned so much working with you, and the amazing people you've introduced us to. And I'm thinking of the Cause Catalyst
folks.
Catalyst
team. They're amazing.
Soto, and team. And you've helped us develop, for the first time in our organization, the professional fundraising machine that an institution as old as ours should have to be able to kind of go confidently into the future.
Yeah.
And normally we've been more of a, woohoo, it's, whew, we just finished that year. Now we got to do it all over again. And really feeling very much, like, are we going to be able to make it? Can we make it this year?
Well, you got advice from a donor that you adopted. You brought to me, you brought to Erica, and then you embraced it wholly, that transformed things for you, which was find the joy in the fundraising.
Yeah. Oh,
so you had a donor and founder of the organization.
Yeah. Nancy Nordoff.
Yes. Yeah. And who said, finding the joy in the fundraising can be transformative.
Yeah.
You embraced that. You
Not at first.
No.
Not at first.
Eventually.
No. Eventually, yeah.
There were some wide eyes there for me.
I was like, sure. And I thought it was nonsense. And then I went to the National Storyteller Conference.
Oh, the nonprofit
story contest that you recommended. And it did transform how I thought about fundraising.
Yeah.
And what I realized, the takeaway after going was, Nancy already told me this. Nancy
you were right.
This. She was right. And it also married, as a journalist, the storytelling is always the front of mind for me.
Yeah.
But I hadn't been able to make the connection between storytelling and fundraising, and understanding that being able to tell your story joyously, right? And with the enthusiasm of somebody who believes in their story, makes the connection to fundraising and to people who you're asking to support what you do so logical.
Yeah.
I don't want to say easy, but so straightforward.
Yeah.
And so, I have come to find the joy in fundraising, and no one is more surprised than I am. Nancy may be second, but I mean, she was right. She is absolutely right. And as a philanthropist, she understood that she gets the joy of fundraising. And she wanted me to understand that that was something that I could tap into for all of our donors. And that felt like it belonged with our radical hospitality.
Yeah, it does.
Because if it gives them joy to see what happens to Hedgebrook and to ensure that what happens at Hedgebrook gets to happen, I want them to have that joy.
Well, I think the other thing that it had an impact on is your staff. So in this past year, you had your team all come to the table individually, collectively at different times and say, how do I join the fundraising team? I would like to wear that hat in addition to my other role. And it was this like movement that happened very quickly at your organization where people wanted in on the joy. They wanted in on the relationship building. And I think ultimately what we started to see is when we tell our stories, we build stronger relationships. It creates a bigger sense of community, and that community is its own like solution, right? Having community creates a lot of answers. And
absolutely,
when your team embraced that, you had 100% of your staff now owning some of that fundraising responsibility, where it was not just about, I have to hit a goal or a benchmark. It became, these are the relationships and the people that I hold dear. And these are the relationships I'm cultivating and extending radical hospitality to. So it's been beautiful to watch your fundraising team evolve.
I'm grateful that it's happened. And also, I guess it shouldn't come as a surprise because it starts with that story of joy.
Right. Yeah.
And that spread. And I came back giddy. Yeah. And that had an impact on my team. And my team really, we were without a development director, and my team was like, how can I want to step up in this way, and I want to step up in that way. And it's been incredible. So I'm excited that we have learned what we've learned.
Yeah.
So that could be how this organization runs.
Well, I think it makes the organization more resilient, but it also makes it has fueled your staff in a way that's been really inspiring to see. Not to be super Pollyanna, because I think as we're talking about the work and the impact, it sounds so beautiful, but it has road bumps along the way. You have had a staff member go to make an ask, it didn't go the way they wanted. They're, crushed by it, but there's resiliency in it because there is this sort of all supporting each other. Who's entering this into the database might be another question, or how are we going to get this letter out in time? We all have those headaches, but there is a stronger sense of connection, community, team, and it's building upon itself.
There's purpose.
Yeah.
There's purpose. And also there's more of a, it feels less organic and more understanding that there are pieces that need to happen and we can do, and understanding the role that those pieces have in this bigger effort. And it's incredibly gratifying. And it's also been fun to see my colleagues decide or learn what interests them in philanthropy, so that they're able to sort of take on a slice of the pie that actually is their favorite slice, right? Yep. And it's a big pie. So there's lots of slices.
It is a big pie. We are going to take a quick break.
Excellent.
Thanks some of our amazing partners. And when we come back, we're going to take Kimberly into the fundraising elevator. We'll be right back.
We've been partnering with Greater Giving for over 20 years as our go-to event auction software. Greater Giving allows us to do our job, planning fundraising events, even better because we can manage guest lists, seating, bid number assignments, and sales all in one place.
That makes it great for our nonprofit partners and their guests. Check out Greater Giving for your next event at greatergiving.com. Link in the show notes. Welcome back. We are here with Kimberly Wilson from Hedgebrook. We are inviting her into the fundraising elevator where we're all headed up. Kimberly, what is a bit of sage advice you would offer our fundraising superheroes out there so that they can continue to head up?
Okay, it's going to sound cheesy, but care.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, when you care about your donor, and I'm not talking your donors writ large.
Yeah.
Right.
But you care about your donor as an individual. You care that there are fires, where they have family.
Yeah.
And you're interested in them and want to let them know that you're thinking about them.
Yeah.
Yep.
You're not thinking about their check. You're not thinking about their DAF. Mm-hmm. You're thinking about what it's like to worry for someone you care about. Maybe you know about a fire and what that feels like. And you just are checking in and you're connecting. And I think understanding that caring is part of the joy has been really kind of transformative for me.
I love that.
It's been transformative to watch too, because I'm seeing the benefit of that, right? I love that advice. We had an organization that right at the top of the pandemic said to me, the only thing I'm doing right now as a development director is checking on people. And she had a donor who said, I don't have a way to get out of my house. My caretaker can't come right now because of the lockdown, and I'm running out of food. And she just went to the grocery store and picked her up a bunch of food and took it to her and delivered it on her front porch, and then went back and called her and told her it was sitting on her front porch for her. That level of caring is how we get through the crazy hard times.
I think you're right. I think that authenticity is something that we need.
Yeah, I agree. Well, I'm a huge fan of you. I'm a huge fan of what you do.
Ditto.
I'm a big fan of Hedgebrook. And so my hope is that if organizations are interested in understanding Hedgebrook, they should check it out by going to hedgebrook.org. But also if they're interested in understanding what a hybrid event is and what it feels like to be a part of, to be a guest, tune in. It's this Sunday. It is a brunch. So it's at 11:30 a.m. Pacific Standard Time. You can go to avcast.me/EQUIVOX. We'll have the link in the show notes.
And EQUIVOX is EQUIVOX.
Thank you. Yes, good point. avcast.me/EQUIVOX that you can click on and simply tune in, and you can be a part of it from anywhere in the world. So we hope folks will check it out. If you missed it, go check out the page because you can still find content on there. And Kimberly, thank you for joining us today, for your work, for supporting women, for giving the chance for women to author change, and for leading with such love and radical hospitality. I can't wait for Sunday, and I hope folks will be joining us.
Thank you. I'm so excited. It's so good to see both of you.
You as well. Take care.
Bye.
The Fundraising Elevator is produced in partnership with Swaim Strategies at the studios of the AV Department. The program is produced and directed by Steve Osborne, with audio engineering and original music by Dwayne Anderson, Heidi Christensen, and Adam Breeden. Video production by Shannon Doran. Graphic design by Pendulum Creative Group. Marketing by Lisa Aragon. Support from Mary Elizabeth, Todd Campbell, John Lyles, and Andy Dowsett. And voiceover by Josh Boykin.
Friends, before we leave you, we want to ask for your help to make the podcast grow. If you enjoyed what you heard today, please like, follow, subscribe to the Fundraising Elevator. And if you're getting a lot out of the show, please share it with a friend and leave a review. These things help make sure that the podcast continues heading up. Thank you so much for tuning in.
Are you ready to engage supporters and grow your base with your own podcast? Then let us introduce you to our partners at the AV Department in Portland, Oregon. In addition to delivering exceptional live event audiovisual production and videography, they also have a top-tier production studio and an expert team ready to take your content ideas to the next level. Contact the AV Department to schedule a consultation and start bringing your podcast vision to life.